Hey everyone, on this episode we're going to build a gate that's going in the fence in front of our property. We currently have two gates that's for our vehicles to pass through, and we want to build a gate for ourselves to pass through and get the mail and stuff like that. So I had this idea of building a gate when we had a tree that was growing into one of our live oaks and rubbing it pretty extensively, so we decided to cut it down. It was cherry wood, and so wanted to use that wood to build something out of, and we had a friend of ours come over and mill it down into lumber, and so we decided to finally build this gate, and on this episode we'll kind of go through some of the steps. So the gate started out as a tree growing up in our property. Here's a section of it that I had milled down. So we had a friend of ours come over and with a portable sawmill come over and mill up some trees for us, and milled up this cherry and two boards that you see here. So right now it's about 1.25 inch boards. You can see the nice long straight boards that we got out of that. So this is a section of it that I didn't use, and the ones that we did I'll show you here in just a minute. So here's an example of all the planks put together. We cut down each plank to 48 inches tall, and after putting them together here, it's about 48 inches wide. I'll show you the opening in the fence that we're attaching this to. So all we have now here is each plank is glued together. You can see some of the seams, and then we just screwed them together with this pocket hole screws. So each one has a screw going in one direction, and it's pretty sturdy. It all comes up as one piece, but there is some kind of flex in it, and that was kind of expected. So we'll be putting some cross members here shortly, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute. Okay, so here's our cross member that's already been cut. I cut it just about 1/4 inch shy of the end. This is the part where the latch is going to go. Just trying to keep that swinging radius, just to make sure this edge doesn't hit the post there. I have it flush on this side. This is going to be where the hinges go on the front, and that way it's going to make more of a stop for when it hits the post. And we'll see that when we build it. But I'm putting this piece in to cover the previous pocket holes. So I have this squared up here, and I'm going to put some glue on it, and then we'll get it clamped down. So just using the interior exterior wood glue. No experience with it on a gate, so we'll see how this does, and we'll get this glued in for a minute, and then we'll screw it down. So just kind of smear that around. We need a lot more glue, actually, looks like. Alright, so kind of smeared around, just using just a block of wood just so it doesn't get all over my hands. This much glue, it's going to be kind of a pain to get off your hands. So, rolling it back over, making sure everything is flush and set. Maybe you can clamp it down temporarily while we screw it down. It's permanently. One thing I also recommend that I did here is to countersink the screws into the wood. It just makes for another added protection for that screw. Don't like it sticking out some, just to kind of get water up in there. I like to kind of countersink them. It's kind of my own personal thing. I'm not sure if it does much, but I think it looks a little nicer, and I think it protects the screw head a little bit. Okay, now for the all-important diagonal piece. Now that I've got the bottom and top pieces secured, I'm going to be putting on this diagonal piece, and this is important that you get the right diagonal you don't want to build it and have the hinges on this side and the diagonals going the wrong way. So always remember you're working from the back side, and that you want, you know, the top of the diagonal to be on the hinge side to carry that force. So this is a spare piece right here that I haven't ripped down or prepared yet. This is straight from the board, from the tree, really. And so I'm going to be ripping this down and then getting this angled cut here so it's going to fit nice and snug along the support pieces. And once I get it ripped down, we'll see how I'm going to do that the best way that I can come up with. So we'll show that for you. Okay, here we have the diagonal piece that's been ripped down to the same width of this as the supports. So I have it laid out here, the orientation that I want, and I have it just shy of the end, and you can see here I can lay this speed square along the edge and kind of eyeball that as, you know, right along the support post. So then I can scribe this line here across the diagonal piece and get the actual angle that I need to cut that with. So what I'll do is just transfer that to the miter saw, and my miter saw will probably cut that. I don't have like one of those sliding ones, so I think that it'll be wide enough of a blade that it'll cut that. So that's what I'll do now, and then we'll get it fit back in here and screw it in. Okay, here we go. We have the diagonal piece put in, or at least set in. We'll be gluing this down and screwing it in. It fits really well here on the ends, and so we'll be gluing the whole piece into all these gate boards, and I will be putting in 2 screws at each one of these boards, so there's not a way for it to rotate around the one screw in each board. So we'll do the same method, screw it in and countersink the screws in there, and so then we'll be, you know, kind of finished for this gate here, and we'll go on to the next steps of sanding it down, finishing it, and putting all the hinges and attachments on. Okay, as you can see here, we've sanded down the front of the gate here. I've used a belt sander with a 60 grit sandpaper on it, and kind of got the ridges and whatnot sanded down. So then I switched to an 80 grit sandpaper on an orbital sander, finished it off, made it pretty smooth. It you know, it's not like a furniture tabletop smoothness, but this is just going to be an outdoor gate. And then I have started putting on 1 coat of this marine varnish on it, and you can see the difference here. It brings out the grain pretty well. It's pretty shiny right now, I think just because it's wet, so when it dries off a little bit, it should kind of dull the finish a bit and look pretty nice. So we'll continue with this first coat, and then we'll see how it looks and continue with maybe 2 or 3 more just for some added protection. Okay, so here's a close-up of the hinge, so you can see how I attached it to the post. It's about 12 inches onto the gate and attached with 3 screws onto the post. I used this post because it's in line with the fence, and that's going to give a good support versus this one, which is the entrance, comes off at an angle.